Yeah, hello everyone. I hope you are doing well, taking care of yourself and your parents at home. This is the first session in which I am going to discuss about the theme of the subject, theory of computation or formal languages and automata theory. So, basically, this subject is having the two titles, theory of computation for IT students, and it can also called as formal languages and automata theory for CSC students. So anyhow, the subject is same. However, the titles are different for the different branches, but the syllabus is same as per the JNTU Kakinada for both the branches. Okay. So let us have a look on the theme of the subject. So the first thing is that what is this theory of computation? So here just understand the theory of computation is nothing but study of the computational problems. Okay. So as we know that we use the computer for solving the various computation problems, right? So while solving those computational problems by using the computer, we need to analyze what are the computational problems that can be solved by a computer and what are the computational problems that cannot be solved by a computer. So in order to understand this difference, we need to study this subject called theory of computation, right? So we could say that the theory of computation is nothing but a branch of computer science and mathematics that deals with the computational problems that can be solved by a conceptual model of a computer. Okay, so here instead of using the direct computer here for solving the computational problems, we are using the model of computation. Okay, so here we are using the conceptual model of a computer for solving those computational problems. Okay, so you may get a question that uh, why we are bothering about these computational problems and why we are bothering about this theory of computation. So here one thing that you need to understand here is this theory of computation concept came into existence before the invention of computer. So before the invention of the computer, scientists made an analysis on what are the various computational problems that could be solved by a computer and what are the various computational problems that cannot be solved by a computer. So that classifications that we are studying in this subject, right? So whenever we are dealing with the complex problems, computational problems, and we are thinking to solve those computational problems with the help of computer, we need to analyze the complexity of that computational problem. So in order to do that, we need to have a brief idea on this theory of computation. Okay, so the study of the computational problem solved by a model of computation is called as a theory of computation. Okay, so here we are going to discuss about various model of computation in this subject, and every model of computation uh, solves certain type of computational problem. So that we are going to see in the coming sessions. Okay, so again the another title we are having here is formal languages and automata theory. So again, we could say that automata theory is the study of abstract machine. So what is an abstract machine? So simply it is a model of computation. Okay, so abstract machine is nothing but it is a theoretical or conceptual model of a computer. Okay, so same thing we could say here. Abstract machine is also called as an automaton. Okay, so computational model, abstract machines, and automata. So these are all the representing the same meaning, that is called as conceptual model of a computer, right? So abstract machine, automata, and computational model. So they are all equal. Okay. So if you observe here, automaton. So automaton, we are giving the same definition as it is a mathematical model of a computer. Okay. So another definition we could say abstract machine is a theoretical or conceptual model of a computer hardware or software. Okay. So whatever the computing device that you are considering, the conceptual model of that computing device, we can call it as automaton or abstract machine. So why this automata theory or theory of computation is required? So the main thing here is in order to understand the behavior of computing system that you are developing. So we require this theory of computation. Okay, so that is one of the reasons for the studying of this theory of computation or formal languages and automata theory. So if you are implementing or if you are designing some computing system, in order to understand the behavior or the complexity of that particular computing system, we need this uh, automata theory concept or theory of computation. Okay. So, and last point, if you see here, if you look at this last point, it is also used to analyze the complexity of an algorithm, right? So, if you are implementing certain algorithm, if you are designing some sort of algorithm, then in order to understand the complexity of that particular algorithm, we require this automata theory, right? So, uh, the moment when we finish the last fifth unit, you will get a clear idea on how to analyze the complexity of the problems. How could you classify a computational problem into the various classes? Okay, so that is the main thing that we will learn in the last unit. Okay, so as we continue the sessions, you can get the concept of this automata, what is automata, and what are the various automatas, and what are the computational problems that can be solved by those automatas. You will get a clear idea as the time passes on. Okay. So the next thing is that why do we study this automata theory? So basically, this automata theory is required to understand the limits of the computation, right? So here, I am focusing on the 2 points here. The first point is called as the decidability, and the next point is called as intractability, right? So just try to understand the difference between these two. In order to justify these 2 points, let me give a small history. So, first thing is that before the invention of the computer, one of the scientists, the popular scientist named Alan M. Turing, stated that whatever the problems that can be solved by a Turing machine can also be solved by a computer, and whatever the problems that cannot be solved by a Turing machine cannot be solved by a computer too, right? So here, the first thing here is that what is this Turing machine? So Turing machine is an abstract machine or model of computation that was proposed by the Alan M. Turing, right? And through that particular model, the that Alan M. Turing has proved that the problems that could solved by a Turing machine can also be solved by a computer, and whatever the problems that cannot be solved by a Turing machine can also cannot be solved by a computer, right? So he has proved that the hypothesis. Okay, so by giving the simple proof, so that we will discuss in the last unit. So the first category you would say decidability, where we are having a computational problems that can be solved within a fixed amount of time, right? So here, instead of saying a fixed amount of time, we are calling a technical word as polynomial time, right? So the computational problems for which there exists a solution, then those problems are called as decidable problems, right? And the another category is that whatever the computational problems that cannot be solved by the computer in a fixed amount of time or polynomial time, those comes under the intractability, right? So as I mentioned earlier that we are studying this theory of computation to understand what are the computational problems that can be solved by a computer and what are the computational problems that cannot be solved by a computer, right? So the problems that are solved by the computer are called as decidable, right? And the problems that cannot be solved by a computer within a polynomial time, then those are called as intractability. Okay, so these are the 2 points. To understand these, we need to study this automata theory or theory of computation. Okay, so let us have a look on the various automata, examples of various automata. So we are going to have these automata in our discussion. So first one is a finite automata. Next one is push down automata. Third one is linear bounded automata. And next one is the Turing machine. Okay. So here we don't have the linear bounded automata in our syllabus. So totally we are going to have these three automatas in our syllabus where we are going to discuss about finite automata in unit 1, unit 2 and then push down automata, unit 3, and unit 4, we are having Turing machine, followed by that computational problems classification. Okay, so this is how our syllabus is divided into the units, 5 units. Okay, so I hope that you have understand the basic theme of this subject, that is theory of computation or formal languages and automata theory. So one more point here is that you may get a question that what is this formal language, right? So every automata accepts certain language, or every automata understands some sort of language. So whatever the language that is understand by a understand by an automata is going to be called as formal language, right? So, in order to interact with an automata, we require a language. Okay. So, the language through which we interact with an automata is called as a formal language. So, simply you can remember this sentence. Okay. So, we will discuss these concepts in the coming classes, where you will get a clear idea about what are the various formal languages, and what are their complexities too. So let us start with our first automata, that is called as finite automata. So this is the first concept in the unit 1, finite automata. So what is the finite automata? The first thing is that, uh, as I mentioned earlier, that it is a mathematical model of a system, or mathematical model of a computing device. Okay, that will take some input. Okay, so that is the first definition we could say here. It is a mathematical model of a system with some input. So system is nothing but, you can imagine like it is a computing system or computing device, or you could say it is an abstract model of a digital computer. So the another point that we can add here is that this is a mathematical model of a computer consisting of finite set of states and transitions. Okay? So throughout the syllabus, whenever we are discussing about an automata, we are going to encounter the two words, that is state transition diagram and state transition table, right? So that will be we will be discussing in the coming session. So just remember that every automata is going to have some set of states and transitions, right? So as it is a finite automata, we are going to have some finite set of states and transitions, right? So here you may get a question, what is the state, okay, and what is the transition, right? So the first thing is that state. So state represents the behavior of a system. So whatever the system that you are implementing, so that particular point of time, its behavior is represented by a state. Okay, and whenever the system is in one particular state, if we supply some input, it will process those input and it will move to the next state. So the moving from one state to the another state is called as a transition. Okay? So in order to understand the behavior of the computation uh, system that we are implementing, we represent it in a form of state transition diagram, right? So whenever we have this finite set of states and transitions, then it is going to be called as a finite automata. Okay, I hope you have understood this finite automata concept, okay, basic definition. So just remember 2 points. It is a mathematical model of a system consisting of finite set of states and transitions. That's it. Okay. So to make the things clear, let us have a look on a simple switch, right? So consider that we are going to implement a switch, or we are going to understand the behavior of a switch with respect to this state transition diagram, right? So the first point is that, oh, how the switch behaves. Okay, so basically the switch operates in the two states. One is the on state, and another one is the off state. Okay, one is the on state and another one is the off state. So here if you look at this diagram, you could find that we are having the circles, right? Let me highlight that part. Okay. So we are having the circles, right? That circle represents the states. Okay. So these are the states. So we are having those two states, on state and off state. So we have represented that state in a form of a circle, right? And we marked the on state as a start state. So remember that every finite automata is going to have only one start state, right? So this is the state where your system is initially placed, right? So this is my switch. I am considering that the switch will be in on state at the uh, what we can call it as initially. At the initially, this switch will be in on state, right? So during this state, whenever you give certain input, it will move from on state to the off state. So here you could observe this transition from on state to the off state. So when the switch moves from on state to the off state, so whenever you push the button, so this pushing of the button will be considered as an input. So during on state, if you push a button, the switch will move from on state to the off state, right? So same is the case with the off state. So it will remain in the off state until you again push the button. So the moment when you push the button during the off state, the switch will move from off state to the on state, right? So here you could see we are having that two states and the transition from one state to the another state, which is represented by an arrow. So by doing this, we can able to understand the functionality of the system that we are implementing, right? So I hope that you have understood this finite automata concept with this simple state transition diagram, right? Next. So this is the most popular example, I would say, because this is the finite automata of an ATM system. So as we all use this ATM system, so I hope that you can easily understand this finite automata concept with this example too. The first thing is that if we are implementing an ATM system to understand its behavior, we can represent its behavior in a form of state transition diagram, right? So let me say the ATM will be in a ideal state at the beginning. So I am saying that the ideal state is the start state. Ideal state is the start state. So the ATM system will remain in this state until you insert the card, right? So the what is the input in this state? Insertion of the card. So the moment when you insert the card, the ATM will move from idle state to a card inserted state, right? So after entering into this particular state, uh, it asks for the password or PIN number, right? So the moment when you enter the four-digit PIN number, the ATM will changes its state from card inserted state to the PIN entered state, right? So during this state, what will happen? The PIN is going to be verified. If it is valid, then it is going to give an option, right? So the moment when the PIN is verified, what will happen? It will move from PIN entered state to the option state, right? So after verifying the PIN number, what it will do, it will displays the menu, right? So the moment when you select a menu, what will happen? It will goes to that option selected state or choice selected state, right? So for example, I have selected a withdrawal option, right? So next step, what will happen? It will ask us to enter the amount, okay, the amount which we want to withdraw. So the moment when we enter the amount, what will happen? It will move from option selected state to the amount entered state, right? And after that, what will happen? The specified amount is given as input to the cash dispenser. The cash dispenser will dispatch the money, and after that, the ATM will come back to the initial state, right? So I hope what we have done here is that we represented the behavior of ATM system by using the state, right? And we have shown the state transition from one state to the another state based upon the input that is supplied. Okay? So likewise, we can analyze the behavior of any computation machine or computation system by using the state transition diagram. Okay. Next one, finite automata can also be used to recognize the keywords. Okay. So here, to discuss this concept, let me take to you. Let me uh, give one example here. So as we have come across with the many compilers, right? So C compiler, Java compiler. Okay. So we also use the interpreters like Python interpreter and all. The first thing what will happen whenever you give your input program as input to the compiler, what the compiler will do, it will divides your program into the tokens, right? So that is the first operation. So whenever you give the your input source program as input to the compiler, what it will do? It will simply divides the program into tokens. Okay? Tokens. So what are the tokens? Tokens are nothing but identifiers. Okay. So identifiers, next one, it can be a keyword, operators. These are all the, so don't bother about my writing. So tokens are nothing but identifiers, keywords, operators. Okay. So special symbols likewise. Okay, so these are all the tokens. So whenever you give your input source program to the compiler, what it will do, it will divide that program into the tokens. So here, in order to divide the source program into the tokens, behind the screen the compiler uses the finite automata, right? So here I have given one simple example where it is going to recognize a keyword as if. So that means what will happen, whenever we enter the word, whenever we enter this word in your input program, and when you give this input program as input to the compiler, what it will do, it will recognize that if is a keyword, right? So how it is recognizing that if is a keyword, for that it is using the concept of finite automata, right? So see here, initially it will be in state number 1, right? So the moment when it receives the I character during the state 1, it will move from state 1 to the state 2. Okay, so in state 2, if it encounters the F character, it will move from state 2 to the state 3. Since it has found the character I followed by F, it is going to be considered as the keyword if. Okay, so here if you observe, here state 3 is represented by a double circle, right? So this double circle we can call it as a final state or accepting state. Okay, so this is the state where the finite automata halts and accepts or recognizes the given string, right? So here what the compiler is recognizing, it is recognizing the keyword as if. So for in the state 1, it will find check for the I character. Once it finds an I character, it will move from state 1 to state 2, and during this state 2 it will search for F character. So the moment when it gets a F character, it will move from state 2 to state 3, and since it has encountered the character I followed by F, so it is considered as a keyword. Okay, and it it was in state 3. So we can say that uh, the particular character was recognized if keyword was recognized. Okay, so this state we can say here it is a final state. Okay, where the finite automata will stop. Okay, so we will discuss these concepts clearly in the coming sessions, and you can able to understand this in clear way, right? Now let us move on to the basic terminology. So just try to concentrate on these simple definitions, which are the basic building blocks for this particular subject. Okay. So the first thing is that let me start with the formal language, right? So what is a formal language? As I mentioned earlier, that formal language is nothing but it is a language which is understandable by the finite automata. Okay, or we can say in order to interact with a finite automata, we require the formal language, right? So just like we are all communicating by using the communication languages like English, Hindi, okay, Telugu, like these languages. Same is the case with an automata. So automata understands only that formal language, right? So those formal languages are not that much complex as our communication languages, right? So that's why we use the word as formal language. Okay? So the first thing, just like in our communication language, like English. So what is the English language consist of? It consisting of set of sentences, right? So what is a sentence? It is nothing but grouping of words. Okay. What is a word? It is nothing but sequence of symbols. Okay. So for every language, the basic element is the symbol, right? So once we define a symbol or set of symbols, we can able to formulate the words, and once we can able to formulate the words, we can able to group those words into the sentences. Okay, and how based on the sentences the language is going to evolve, right? So same is the case with the formal language, right? So the first basic element is the symbol, right? In the case of formal language, also the first basic element is a symbol, right? So what is a symbol? It is an abstract entity which has no meaning by itself, right? So simply it can be any character which doesn't convey any specific meaning, right? So what are the examples of symbol? It can be either small a, small b, small c, 0, 1, 2, hash, dollar, star, at the rate, okay, alpha, beta, gamma. So these are all we could say these are all the symbols, okay, examples of symbols. Next one is that once uh, you define a set of symbols, then it is going to be called as an alphabet. So what is an alphabet? So in theory of computation or formal languages and automata theory, an alphabet is represented by a sigma, right? So what is this alphabet? Finite non-empty set of symbols. Finite non-empty set of symbols is called as an alphabet. Okay, so it is represented by an sigma. So example, alphabet set is equal to set of a comma b. So here I am defining a alphabet consisting of two symbols a comma b. So what it means? So whatever the strings that you generate, those strings must consist of the symbols from the alphabet only, right? So that is the significance. So as I mentioned you that whenever you are composing any of the languages, the first thing is that you need to identify what are the symbols that you want to mention in that language, right? So those set of symbols that you want to mention in the language is represented by a sigma. Okay. So let me give an example here. If you observe the machine language, which is consisting of zeros and ones, right? So in that case, what will be the sigma there? What will be the sigma? If you consider the machine language, uh, then what will be the sigma in that case? As we know that machine language consisting of zeros and ones, right? So you could say in that case alphabet set consisting of two symbols. What are those? 0, comma 1. So sigma is equal to 0, comma 1, right? So that is the significance of an alphabet, right? So what if you are interested to define a formal language, then you need to specify the set of symbols that occurs in those formal language. And how do you represent that the set of symbols? By using this alphabet set sigma. Okay, I hope you understand. Next one is that string. So what is a string? So as we know that string is nothing but sequence of characters, right? So here we could say sequence of symbols. So instead of characters, we could say sequence of symbols. So I think now the definition is clear to you. Sequence of symbols. Okay. So instead of character, use the words symbols, right? So what is a string? Sequence of symbols chosen from alphabet set sigma, right? So as I mentioned that once you define the alphabet set, the next thing is that you may be in a position to define the string. Okay, what is string consisting of? The symbols which are present in the alphabet set sigma. So sequence of symbols chosen from alphabet set. A string is usually represented by small w, right? So in this overall subject, we are going to represent the string by using a small w, right? So for example, we are having a w is equal to a comma b. Then what will be the sigma? Sigma is equal to set of a comma b. Okay, so by seeing this string W, we can able to determine the alphabet set. Okay, so what is an alphabet set? It is going to consisting of two symbols A comma B. Why? Because our string consisting of two symbols. What are those? A B, right? In our string we are having two symbols A B. So that's why the alphabet set is consisting of A comma B. So for example, you can also write the another string as W is equal to A, B, A, right? So you can also write the string AWA. Okay. So This is also the string which can be defined over alphabet set sigma because it is consisting of the characters or symbols from the alphabet set sigma. Okay. Next one, length of a string. So length of a string is nothing but number of symbols present in a string. Okay. So just here, remember the representation of length of the string. So if small w is a string, its length is represented by mod w, right? So if w is some string, then its length is represented by mod w, right? So here you could see w is equal to abc, right? We are having a string w is equal to abc. Then its length is represented by mod w. Then what are the number of characters which are there in the w? 3. So mod w is equal to 3. So this is the length of the string. So I would say, for example, x equal to let me say x equal to 0, 1, 0. X equal to 0, 1, 0. Then what is mod x? Then what will be the mod x? What will be the mod x? So it is nothing but 3. Why? Because x is consisting of three symbols 0, 1, 0. So mod x is nothing but its length, okay, which is 3 in this case. Next one, null string or empty string. So a string of length 0 is called as null string or empty string. So in formal languages and automata theory, this null string is represented by an epsilon. So here you could see epsilon. So epsilon is nothing but a string of length 0. So we will be using this epsilon in our computational problems in the coming session, and at that time you will understand the significance of epsilon there, right? So next one, what is next one is power of an alphabet. So by using this power of an alphabet, we can represent set of strings of certain length by using exponential notation. We can represent set of strings of certain length by using exponential notation. So sometimes you may be interested to represent set of all strings of some specific length. So in that situation, we need to use alphabet set with exponent notation. Okay. So let us try to understand this with one example. So here we are having this uh, here we are having this sigma power 0 or alphabet set power 0. So what is this sigma power 0? It is representing set of all strings of length 0, right? So whatever may be the alphabet set, if you are writing alphabet set power 0, what it means, it is representing set of all strings of length 0. So how do you represent string of length 0? It is epsilon. So sigma power 0 is equal to set of epsilon, or epsilon we can write. Okay, let me say uh, uh, sigma is equal to a comma b. So consider that sigma is equal to a comma b. So we are having an alphabet set sigma is equal to a comma b. So what is sigma power 1? What is sigma power 1? Sigma power 1 is nothing but sigma power 1 is nothing but it is simply the set of all strings of length 1. Okay, so it is nothing but set of all strings of length 1. So what is its value? Set of a comma b, right? Because a is one string of length 1, b is another string of length 1. So we are writing whatever the possible set of strings of length 1 as sigma power 1. Okay. So let me tell you sigma power 2. What will be the value for sigma power 2? What will be the value for sigma power 2 or alphabet set power 2? That is representing the set of all strings of length 2. So what are the possibilities? AA, AA, next one, AB, AB, next BA and BB and BB. Right? These are all the four possibilities. So a sigma power 2 consisting of set of AA, comma AB, comma BA, comma BB. Okay. So this is sigma power 2. So whatever may be the alphabet set, so from that alphabet set, we need to determine the set of strings of certain length. Okay. In that case, we represent the alphabet set with an exponent. If I want to find out sigma power 3, what it means? Set of all strings of length 3. Okay. Those set of strings must be defined from sigma. So what are the possible combinations? A, triple A's, next A, B, A, next A, B, 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 A, B, B, A, likewise. Okay, so that will give us our sigma power 3. Next one. This is also one of the most important concepts. This is clean closure. So we can represent set of all strings of all possible length. So clean closure is represented by sigma power star, right? So it is representing the set of all strings of all possible length. So let me say, uh, if sigma is equal to a comma b, right? So I am having an alphabet set is equal to a comma b. Then what will be the sigma star? Sigma star is nothing but set of all strings of all possible length. So the first thing is that set of all strings of length 0. So what is the value? What will be the value? So it will be sigma. Okay. Next, set of all strings of length 1. So A comma B, you will get one more A comma B. So A comma B. So these are the strings of length 1. Next comma strings of length 2. AB, BA, BB. Okay, then next one strings of length 3. Set of strings of length 3. ABA, BA, BAB, BBA, likewise. Okay. Similarly, you will get a set of that means you will get a string of length 4. Okay, 4 A's, 4 B's, AA, BB, BB, AA, AB, AB, BA, BA, B, like that. Okay. Similarly, you will get a set of strings of length 5. So, whenever you write the set of all possible strings of all possible length, then it is going to be called as sigma star. Okay, or we can call it as clean closure. So, the general equation for the sigma star is like this. So sigma star, that is clean closure, is equal to sigma power 0. That means set of all strings of length 0 union set of all strings of length 1 union set of all strings of length 2 union set of all strings of length 3 union, so on. Okay. That is about the clean closure. Next, we are having the clean positive closure. So it represents set of all strings of all possible length except null character. So what is the difference between clean closure and clean positive closure? In the clean closure, uh, our set going to starts with an epsilon. Okay, so it starts with a string of length 0. But in case of positive clean closure, it starts with a string of length 1. So it is not going to have an epsilon. It doesn't contain any epsilon. So that is only the difference. So that's why here we are mentioning it represents set of all strings of all possible length except null or empty string. Okay, since we are saying it is not consists of uh, null string, so we are not going to have an epsilon. So if sigma is equal to a comma b, then sigma power plus is called as positive clean closure, consisting of set of all strings of all possible length except null 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 string. So what are the possibilities? It starts with a string of length 1. So a comma b. So I have not mentioned b here. So just in your example mention b. Okay. Otherwise I will also modify this slide. Okay. A comma b. So that is the string of length 1. Next we are having a AB, BA, BB, strings of length 2. Next, ABA, BBA, strings of length 3, and so on. So, how do you write the equation for positive clean closure? So, it is written as sigma power plus is equal to, that means positive clean closure is equal to sigma power 1. That means set of all strings of length 1 union sigma power 2, set of all strings of length 2 union sigma power 3, set of all strings of length 3 union sigma power 4, so on. Okay. So you are going to get infinite set of strings here. Next one. Uh, so Next one is that components of finite automata. So till now we have seen what is a finite automata and what are the basic building blocks required for formulating the formal language. Okay? So let us have a look on the components of finite automata. So if you observe here this diagram, it is similar to the diagram of a computer, right? So but it is not containing the details of a computer block diagram. So it is simply we are representing just conceptual model of a computing device or conceptual model of a computer. So as we mentioned that finite automata is nothing but it is a conceptual model of a computer or mathematical model of a computer consisting of finite set of states and transitions. Okay. So let us try to understand what are its components. Okay. The first thing is that as we mentioned that the model of computation or the what we can call it as abstract machine is for performing the computation, right? So the main objective of the abstract machine is to perform the computation. So in order to perform that computation, we require certain basic components. The first one is input tape. So why we require input tape? Because in order to perform the computation we need to give certain sort of input, right? To store that given input we require an input tape, right? The next one is that we require a read head so that we can able to read the input from the input tape that will be given as input to the finite control or control unit, right? So this control unit is responsible for performing the required operation. That means it will perform the state transition. Okay? And finally it will give the output which can be either accept or reject. Okay? So if you observe here this finite automata consisting of the basically three components. The first one is the input tape, next one is the read head, and next one is the finite control or control unit, right? So what is this input tape? So here the input tape is a linear tape in which we are going to have the sequence of cells. The input tape consisting of sequence of cells and each cell contains one input symbol. Okay? So every cell is going to have only one input symbol. And next we are having the read head. So what is the purpose of the read head? The read head will read the symbol from the input tape one at a time. So at a particular point of time, the read head will be pointing to one particular cell and it is used for reading the input symbol present in that cell. Okay. So read head is responsible for reading the input symbol from input tape, one symbol at a time, right? And next one is we are having one more point here is that in case of read head, it moves from left to right. That means after reading the input, it will advances towards right or it will move towards right. Okay. So this is the read head. We cannot able to write the symbols onto the input tape by using this head. Okay. So that's why we are using the word as read head. So by using this head, we can perform only the read operation. Okay. Next, if you observe here the control unit, what it is consisting of? It is consisting of states. So generally, remember that in case of finite automata, we represent the state numbers. We represent the state numbers with the small q, q naught, q1, q2 like that. Okay. So here you could observe we are having q naught, q1, q2, q3, q4. What are they? These are the states, right? So, and if you observe in the finite control, it is pointing to q2. So that's what it means. The finite control will is on state q2. Okay, the finite control is in state q2 and it is reading the input symbol small a, right? So that in that fashion you have to understand. So what is the purpose of the finite control? It will read the current input and it will perform the state transition. Okay. So the main objective of this finite control or control unit is to perform the state transition. Okay. So it will take the current state and current input symbol and process it to perform the state transition. Okay. So finally, after the entire string has been processed or entire input has been processed, it may give the result as either accept or reject. Okay. So if the input is valid, if the given input is valid, then this finite automata is going to give the output as accept. Otherwise, it is going to give the output as reject. Okay. So that part we will discuss in the next session. So if we review this overall session, so we have started the discussion with the theme of the subject, that is the theory of computation and the formal languages and automata theory, and then we have seen what is a finite automata, and followed by basic terminologies like what is the alphabet, what is string, what is string length, okay, what is clean closure, positive clean closure, followed by the components of finite automata. So just try to recall this concept once before attending the next session. Okay, I hope you have understood the basic concepts. If you are having any doubts, so just feel free to contact me either by WhatsApp or by mail. Okay, and if you are having any queries or if you are having any doubts, let me know this, so that we will have a discussion on those queries in the next coming sessions. Okay, thank you.